Today I would like to talk to you about local history, but first I would like to share with you my location so you can better understand what qualifies as my local history. I live in South Haven, Mississippi. I'm on the edge of the northwest corner of the state, very close to the Mississippi River in Memphis, Tennessee. There's a plethora of famous local history here and some not so well-known history. I'd like to start today by telling you a story. Once upon a time, 483 years ago, there was a king, King Charles V of Spain, who sent a small force of 600 men and their entourage to go exploring in North America in search of treasure. The leader of these treasure seekers was the Spanish conquistador Hernando de Soto. The main hope was that they would discover gold or profitable trade goods. However, most of them only discovered death. They spent 4 years traveling the countryside. They traveled across what is now 10 different states and the Mississippi River. They encountered numerous Native American communities. Some Native Americans used the Spanish to help them fight their enemies, and others turned on the Spanish fearing their consumption of local food and water sources. Rough travels, unfriendly Native American encounters, starvation, snake bites, and disease killed most of the explorers, including Hernando himself. Only 311 expedition members made it safely to Mexico. For most, this story sounds like a rather basic story about a group of Spanish conquerors searching for hidden treasure that doesn't exist. But this is local history for me and anyone residing in Desoto County, Mississippi. The county, as I'm sure you can now guess, was named after Hernando de Soto. Starting in 1539, he made his way north from Florida and passed through what is currently the Desoto County area in roughly 1541. He then discovered the Mississippi River and crossed into what is present-day Arkansas. Hernando de Soto wrote the first known documentation describing the Mississippi River. With limited sources, there are 3 proposed paths that Hernando de Soto and his companions traveled to reach the Mississippi River. One of those paths is said to lead from Hernando, Mississippi to Commerce Landing in Tunica, Mississippi. The path was later established as a wagon trail in 1839, and the city of Hernando has since named this trail Commerce Road. It was known for increasing trade into the city to and from the Mississippi River. The city of Hernando was originally called Jefferson in 1832, but was renamed Hernando in 1836, its name also coming from the Spanish conquistador as it sits in the center of the county. The city of Hernando does not stop there in embracing their local history. They also have a historic DeSoto Museum that can easily be seen driving down East Commerce Street, formerly the Commerce Road that I mentioned previously. Collectively, the museum displays each tell a different piece of the country's history. Even the museum building is historical. It used to be the home of the First Presbyterian Church and is one of the oldest church buildings still standing in the city. The main goal of the museum is to preserve the African American history in DeSoto County. One can also find information on the attempted murder of James Meredith, who was the first African American student to attend the University of Mississippi, which is less than an hour's drive south of Hernando. Probably the most notable part of the museum is the adjacent building connected by a wooden plank. It's an 1850s dog trot cabin, and the cabin represents life from the pioneer times, and bluegrass musicians give live performances there once a week. Local history is essential to our nation's history. All the small stories of individual lives help to create the larger tales of our communities. The cultures and people of our country each have their own stories that generate local history and evolve into our nation's history. A great example of this is the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Just a 23-minute drive north from my house is the infamous Lorraine Motel, where Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was shot and killed. Many that were alive that day remember exactly where they were, what they were doing when they heard the news of the assassination. However, most of them don't recall the reason why Dr. King was in Memphis at the time. In February 1968, a group of 1,300 garbage men went on strike in the city of Memphis. They were tired of their poor work conditions, undervalued pay, and the black workers wanted their union recognized. The leaders of the sanitation strike called on Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. to help them fight for their civil rights. A peaceful march down Beale Street was planned for March 28th. However, it did not remain peaceful, and a young black man lost his life that day. Dr. King refused to leave the city with such violent tension and remained another month to host a second march in an attempt to bring peace and civil justice to the Memphis area. However, he was killed before the second march could take place. The Lorraine Motel is now part of the National Civil Rights Museum, a historical landmark, a symbol for civil rights not just in the United States but across the globe. Dr. King's life's work and assassination are part of our national history, but the details of his death are also part of my local history. The value of his assassination has more historical attention than his contributions to the sanitation strike, which clearly outlines a difference between national history and local history. Now, there's plenty of local history that does not bear great significance to the historical profession. Historians have to take great effort to discover what information is more important and offer something more to the community. An example of this is Elvis Presley's ranch house. I drive by Elvis's old ranch house almost every day. It sits about 5 miles from my home and has been abandoned and left to nature for quite some time now. In fact, not many people who live in my area even know the abandoned property once belonged to Elvis. However, Graceland is also less than 5 miles from my home and is well preserved and visited by millions of people. Elvis lived in both houses, yet one has been deemed more important to the historical preservation of the Elvis legacy than the other. It takes great skill, historical knowledge, and understanding to determine what information should be preserved and what is not as important. There can be a fine line between preservation and hoarding. It can also be difficult for people to give appropriate value to their own history versus somebody else's. Our opinions, religious views, morals, and values can play a large role in what we define as important for historical preservation. This is what makes the preservation of local history so important. The people residing in the area are typically more connected emotionally to the historical value, but it also takes outsiders to help keep historical accuracy and to expand the value beyond just the locals. For example, the first hotel to open in a small town might have great emotional connection for the community because it opened the doors for tourists and increases economic flow into the town. However, unless something of great importance takes place in the hotel or something dramatic happens to it, it's limited on its historical significance for more than just the town residents. Locals help to create the initial value of their history, but it takes others to increase the value and give significance over extended periods of time. Local history has a higher chance of preservation with increased connections to outside communities. Local history may start off as a small story about an individual, but it grows in strength as it connects people to where they came from. Local history is the start of our nation's legacy.